To begin, I'd like to share a moment from a 1980 interview with an actor not dissimilar in fame and stature to Leonardo DiCaprio or Meryl Streep. This is Richard Burton being interviewed about his alcohol consumption by Dick Cavett, and I urge you not to only listen to his words, but the subtle background sounds too.
Would you talk about booze for a moment?
If you like.
As a kind of maybe public service or whatever.
I think I've done enough public service in that direction. However, if it helps anybody, yes.
Well, it might very well. I guess what I want to know is how do you know when you're in trouble with your...
I think that nobody quite knows which drink it is that takes him over the edge of being merely a social or hearty, laughing drinker into a morose and hungover, wretched creature who shakes and creaks and sweats and has nightmares, and it's always November and it's raining and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's nowhere to go, and you reach out for a cigarette and smoke and think of all the horrible things you've done in your life and all the shames you've endured and suffered, and the shame you gave other people, and all the wrongs you've done other people. I don't know whether alcoholics can put it quite as eloquently as that. Usually they just say, I just stared out of a window for 2 years. And it is, believe me, the question of being an alcoholic. I'm not quite sure that I am one, but if I'm not one, I'm very near. I'm very right on the edge of being one. But it is no laughing matter. It really is not a laughing matter. Alcoholism is...
This is no laughing matter. Well, times change, and I don't think you'd have the inane laughter of a talk show audience, but we still have the vilification of people affected by addiction, and perhaps now we'd have our celebrity-obsessed daytime TV audiences baying for blame, for fame, scandal, and maybe even blood. Maybe now we're even more confused as to what constitutes addiction too. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders is the handbook that psychiatrists the world over use to categorise us and all our subtle differences. It may be hoarding addiction, internet addiction, gambling addiction, or simply caffeine. But Richard Burton isn't just describing his addictions to alcohol and cigarettes. He's eloquently painting a picture of his own vulnerabilities and the loneliness and shame of his addiction. And whilst all the trappings of 21st century life are peddled to us at every turn, there's no escape from a heavily marketed lifestyle. We're increasingly sold cheap booze on one hand and all the pharmaceutical snake oil for a healthy life and the aspiration of well-being on the other. In all reality, who's addicted to legal and illegal medications beyond me? Who is it who's selling us our booze, keeping us sedated? And who's addicted to what? McDonald's, street drugs, spoonfuls of pharmaceutical elixir to keep us passive, control our fears, suppress our rage. I'm from a family affected by addiction and understand my own place in this conversation. So I make no bones in grounding my part in this project, first and foremost in the personal, and yes, of course, the professional. So being part of this group of people exploring the relationship between recovery and the arts has done nothing but enriched my thinking. Over the last couple of years I've met some amazing individuals across Italy, across Turkey, and of course across the UK, all of us bound by the invisible threads of addiction. With a background in public health, I'm mindful too of the fact that addicted people are publicly demonised, more often than not defined by deficit and stigma and not of potential and value. So with the words of Margaret Mead in mind, I began having discussions with people in small huddles and sometimes larger groups to explore how we see ourselves, our values and our futures, and from these conversations the idea of a manifesto was born. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. With this mantra running through our conversations, we've been exploring artists, manifestos and activism, And central to all this thinking has been the idea of fundamental human rights. And with something of the spirit of Nelson Mandela, who was on one hand publicly and politically rehabilitated from terrorist to saint, we began asserting ourselves, not as being passively in recovery, but defining ourselves as recoverists, as sentient human beings with individual voices but with shared vision beyond frontiers. Here are a couple of lines and a useful starting point from the Bill of Recovery Rights in the USA. We have the right to be considered as more than a statistic, stereotype, risk score, diagnosis, label or pathology unit, free from the social stigma that characterises us as weak or morally flawed. If we relapse and begin treatment again, we should be treated with dignity and respect that welcomes our continued effort to achieve long-term recovery. By speaking out and putting a human face on recovery, people in or seeking recovery and their families play a critical role in breaking down barriers. These personal faces and voices of recovery serve powerfully to educate the public about addiction and recovery and about discrimination against those seeking sustained recovery. So we've begun a conversation with each other. Why recoverist? Well, it's about moving beyond being a passive individual and having a voice, a loud voice. Let's think of ourselves as activists, not numbers or statistics, not disease and pathology, but human beings born equal in this world. So, with the conjoined, authentic voices of people in recovery, families affected by addiction and professionals in the field from our 3 countries, and with strong language from the outset, here is a poetic taste of an emerging Recoverist Manifesto. What is this fairy tale of lies, this state of decay, this void of loneliness? A sad, chaotic, dehumanized and objectified world. I can't find peace and be seduced by this frigid awareness. I see no future. Go fuck yours. Am I lost? Lost and broken-hearted. This pain and loneliness, this shame, it's all consuming. And in all of this, I'm anonymous, invisible in this chaotic, unequal life. And in this medicated world, aren't we all addicted? Addicted to greed? Our past and present are full of lies, defamations and plots. The same games will be played out in the future by those in power, the ones who don't want people to prosper or to be educated. Controlling our lives, silencing our voices, your prejudice and fears don't surprise me. And how is it possible for anyone to enjoy other things in life? If you're hungry, I can't think of anything else because I'm so very sleepless and so very hungry. Oh, this temporary, unequal world. But open your eyes, you're dying. Here are your grave clothes. There is the black, black soil. Was it better when it was worse? When our struggle was immeasurable? Or did we die in the past, only to live in the future? All I know is I'm fighting with the past, but fighting with all my strength. Sure, I've made mistakes in my life, but bravely I will stand up again, and bravely I will walk forwards. But how do we escape this descent into the vortex? Sometimes it feels like a black hole, but it's fine. Just hold your head above the water and swim through it. We'll hold your hand. It will be fine. Don't be afraid. You see, we're creating the future. You and me, creating it all the time. But stop judging people with problems. Nobody's perfect. And you're being hard on yourself. Clear your eyes. Wash away that grit. Hold your hand out to me. Listen, behind all the white noise, that chaos of existence, there are quieter sounds. Our beautiful green earth, moving in the inky blackness. There is space to be who you really are, beyond superficial appearance. Let's learn to listen and not just look and judge. Let's move beyond this apathy. Let's listen to the background sounds, the sounds at the edges that aren't so familiar. A new star is being born inside me. I can see a future that was hidden so deeply. I listen, I hear, but there is pain involved in this birth, in every birth. Hold on. This is dangerous. This is dangerous and beautiful. We will sweat to achieve our imaginations. We will hold the world in our hands, small and immense. Let us cradle our aspirations, nurture our possibilities. To share is to double. We don't have to face this world completely alone. So, let us summon the strength of the universe and revel in the magnificence of who we actually are. Our knowledge is our power. But does the world want to hear us, to listen to us? Open your clear, fresh eyes, look up to the sky, look at us, respect us, love us. Don't be scared by that confusion. Let us take a leap from our years of uncertainty, become the things we dreamed of. We're a powerful voice, a vital energy. We're part of something bigger. Let's unite. Let's wake up our conscience, stir our sleeping imagination. Be inventive, be curious, be fulfilled with purpose. There is nothing to fear. I don't have all the answers, but that's okay. Am I ready for change? Whatever I'm going to say, will you be as determined as I am when you're listening? When I don't speak up for myself, nobody else will, so I will, we will. We are recoverists, and we're committed to solidarity and equity. We are recoverists, and we ask for respect and tolerance. We are recoverists, and we are diverse and evolving. We are recoverists, and we are nurturing our voices. We are recoverists, and we're moving forwards to forgiveness, to education, to family, sincerity and freedom, to friendship and to love. I can't, but we can.